Diana's in.
Yes.
Oh, no? Oh, wow.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this regular meeting of the South Central Regional Transit District. Today is August 23rd, 2023. It is 1:38 p.m. This session is now in order. If you can please rise and join us for the pledge. Mayor Barraza, if you can lead us with the pledge.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No.
All right. And if I can have roll call, please.
Javier Perea,
Present.
Nora Barraza,
Here,
Meiji Powie, Meiji Powie,
Trustee Powie, present.
well, we know she's here, she's already spoken, so we'll accept that. Yvonne Flores is absent, Manuel Sanchez,
Present.
Diana Murillo,
Present.
Robert Martinez is absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I had to leave to go get the agenda off my printer.
All right, all right.
So I am here.
You have been counted.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes at this moment, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda order.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
I have a
Sanchez.
motion on the floor made by Commissioner Sanchez to approve the agenda order. Is there a second?
Mayor Barraza, second.
Motion has been seconded. Discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries unanimously. The agenda order has been approved. Item number 5, public input. Anybody from the public wishes to address the board at this time? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6. Approval of,
Okay, can I ask a question? I know that several of us got comments from, I'll just say his first name is Ray. When is it appropriate to discuss those comments?
At the end.
if you can bring it up as board comments,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Mhm.
From here, I'll go on to approval of the SCRTD meeting minutes of July 26, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion on the
July
floor
26.
made by Mayor Barraza to approve the minutes for July 26, 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Motion
Sanchez.
has been seconded by Commissioner Sanchez. Discussion on the minutes. Seeing and hearing none, let me have a roll call vote on the matter, please.
Javier Perea,
Yes.
Nora Barraza,
Yes.
yes. Meiji Powie,
Yes.
Yvonne Flores. We're voting on the minutes. Ms. Flo-
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay, she abstains. Manuel Sanchez,
Yes.
Diana Murillo,
Yes.
thank you. Passes.
Motion carries. Motion carries. And just for the record, Councilor Flores is present. Welcome, welcome. Likewise,
Broken
likewise.
ankle and all.
All right, item number 7 is the executive director's report.
Good afternoon. I'm David Armihill, the Executive Director. I'm going to give you a brief report, just for 4 items. Get you kind of caught up on some of the issues that we're working with at the district. There we go. So I'm going to talk about bus ridership. We are in the federal fiscal year now that runs through next month in September. So 11 months in with a projection for the rest of this month. I want to give you a little update on where we are with the FTA Region 6 grants that we have outstanding. Talk a little bit about the zero emission plan that we filed to the federal government, which helped connect us to some of the grants that we received last year, back in June of 2022, and why it's necessary for us to update that plan. Because lots happened since then, including a whole bunch of grants that we got. And then I'll talk a little bit about the grant applications and where we are right now. It's an interesting month. A lot of work for our finance department. So I took the projection of the ridership that was provided to me by staff today, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of shocked when I looked at the numbers. I had to check them again, and there's a couple of things I still need to work with that. But we had a big month, very similar to where we were in May, and it's because of all the kids came back to school and all the parents and everybody else, and God knows what's going on with the school district. I read the article today, so there's lots going on in Las Cruces. But for Doña County, countywide, these are really big numbers. And across the board, you can see that there's quite substantial ridership with everything in the, by color. You can go by the routes, the red, the purple, the turquoise, and so on. So we're doing very, very well with that. We could, if we have a big month again, we could actually reach 100,000 rides. Not that that really matters, but something about, an extra digit.
The milestone?
Sounds like it'd be good, yeah. Well, that's since we started the grant 6 years ago, that's up 5-fold. I think we estimate we're at either 16 or 18,000 that first full year that we had. So yeah, we've come a long ways, and that's when we had 5 buses. Now we're at 17, and we're certainly providing a lot more service, a lot more unique areas. So, and of course, a substantial amount, almost half of it is on one route. So it makes quite a bit of difference. As we discussed at the last board meeting, if we were able to move to other services we want to add in the future, like Sierra County, make some other adjustments, but as well as doing weekend service, I think that's going to push those numbers up. Any questions on this slide?
I have a slight, blue, who is the blue route?
The blue is our old route that we had. We're using the blue route as our special events.
Oh, gotcha.
So we had, in your neighborhood recently, we had some ridership that we did in Mesilla Valley. And I was going to call you back this morning because I'm not even sure if that's in there. I think that's from the recent legislative delegation, and then we did some other things back in March. So I'm not sure about this summer. We may need to amend this. They are in there. Okay, well, you got it. All right, so we call it the blue because that way it's a route, we can count it.
Okay,
It's just a special event where
okay,
it's a different dynamic.
thank you.
So my Region 6 update. So the good news is since the last board meeting, after many months since March, they have advanced us to the next section. So we've gone from under review to final review. We're now waiting for obligation. And so with that, Adam works through a program called ECHO. So he's waiting to see when they'll take our credit, our ACH numbers for the bank, and then we'll start processing these dollars. So that money is old. We started working on that about 3 years ago. We got it programmed almost 2 years ago, and we've been waiting for the grant process for over a year. That's the $696,000. We have an initial request of $294,458, and that's money from primarily Adam 22 and into 23, correct? So we're looking forward to seeing that money and that money go into our bank account. So that'll make a huge paradigm shift for the company. In addition to that, we have another grant, which we began that process also in March, early April, and that's kind of on hold until this grant gets approved, and then they'll start to look at that, and we'll look at additional programming. We did not program that money into this year's budget. We didn't know when that's going to come through, so we figured, why have more money in there than we don't have? So as soon as we can get that resolved over the next few weeks, we would anticipate possibly in the first quarter, we may come back for a budget adjustment. Or it might be in the second quarter. We'll see when that money becomes available. And so that's my last bullet point. Any questions?
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mr. Armijo. So on the FTA grants, the Section 5307 fiscal year 22, the initial release was 2,094,458. And when it's fiscal year 22, that was when it was authorized or?
That's when it was going to be programmed, but the U.S. government did not have a budget at that time. And it wasn't until the advent of the war in Ukraine in March of 2022 that the Congress decided to agree on a budget. And so we had these extended finances. We didn't have a budget. And so when that happened, then the 22 budget started to come through. We began getting letters from the Federal Transit Administration and others that the money is going to become
So
available.
that's why it was delayed, and we're talking about it. and
Correct.
Here
So
we
the
are.
initial delay was Congress, and then it was followed up by regional efforts.
Implementation?
Yes.
So do we have to use it by the end of 2022? Does it have to be used?
We have 6 years.
We have 6 years to use these allocations?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. That's the good news.
Yeah,
we have
that is
time.
good news.
And it doesn't have to all be spent at one time. So that's something we can program. And again, we'll be bringing more information to the board as we get more information on the 2023 and a little more information on exactly what we're spending this money on to come back. All right, thank you. The zero emission plan update.
Mr. Chair, I have another question, Mr.
Oh, please, let me go
So-
back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So about 400,000, about 400,000 hasn't been used. Is that going to in any way impede another grant saying, well, no, you haven't even used up the money that was already given to you or allocated? So is that going to in any way hinder a new?
No, Councilor Flores, the issue on that one is there are some funds in there that may have been used that we will apply for and get credited to. So I'm looking at Adam because I know he's got a better idea. So you want to answer any of that? You've been working with it.
Yes. Good afternoon, Councilperson Flores. We've been going back and forth, and we have already a couple of things that we have in mind. One of the things, for instance, is we're going to be programming a service truck for that particular area that has not gone in, and the only reason that it hasn't is because it holds up the review process for what we've already submitted. So we have to wait until that's complete, and then we can go ahead and amend it, get the difference.
And then submit for request for 2023?
It's part of the 2022, but the 2023 will follow afterwards.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll find a reason to spend the money. Okay, great. We'll move on to the next one. So the zero emission plan. So the state of New Mexico did come up with some funds for us for this project just over a year ago. Unfortunately, at the time we got authorization for the funds, it was in the month that the deadline was made. And so we were only able to spend a portion of those funds. Lion's share of the project was done internally by staff. We did a great job of getting the grant application in, and it was necessary in order to qualify for the new infrastructure grant money, which I say new now, but that was from 2021. That was in 2022 deadline of June 30th that we were dealing with all these things. And yet that money still hasn't come through. That's another story. I'll get to that later. But so anyway, those funds came in, but also during that year, we got 2 major grants, which I've come before this board and talked about the electric vehicles. And so those electric vehicles are now added to the program. And then we got an MPO order of CMAQ money from last year that gave us some more vehicles. So all that needs to be added to that. Also, we've now started to retire some motor vehicles. We talked about the disposal policy recently. So we want to come back in a couple of months, after we've had time to go through this and talk about what all this means. Probably the most critical point in that is, not to be lost, is you look at the third bullet point, we're really moving from a carbon-based propulsion system, which means engines are either diesel or gasoline driven, but now are going to be electric. And not just hybrid electric, where they're also diesel or gasoline, but fully electric. And so that changes the dynamic, and it also changes the dynamic based on other funds that we're we're getting commitments for from the New Mexico Department of Transportation in addition to the Federal Transit Administration. And where does that go into our schedule of vehicles? And that also has to flow with our service, and where do we go with our service? And that'll require a lot more discussion as we go forward. And probably we'll have to bring back and look at the 10-year plan, because like anything else, things get old very quickly. That's been about 3 years, so that might need to be refreshed as well. And so any questions on this? Bottom line is we'll be coming back with more detail.
David, this is Meiji, and I didn't get those handouts. Were they part of the packet? Because I downloaded the packet.
No, they're part of my presentation today, but we'll go ahead and provide that to everybody. I'm sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. You bet. I'll move on to the next. So the grant application, I put this down in part, it's been an internal discussion that we've been having. So this is a critical time in the fiscal year for us. We are actually, at the moment, processing 3 separate annual grants with the New Mexico Department of Transportation for the 5311 funds or the 5310 senior program funds. And by that, I mean that in the first point is that fiscal year on the federal government is October 1st through September 30th. So the fiscal year 2023, I just presented the ridership a moment ago based on that. That will end in 30 days. And we have to spend those funds or we don't carry them over. So that puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we've got all the invoices and all the stuff that we need to do that. We do get into October to bill it for September, but we still have to get that all done at that time. And any other money does not carry over to us, it goes back to that. Now, we've been pretty good. I think we were 100% last year, and somewhere in the last 2 years, it was 99 point something or other. So we've done pretty good at finding ways to spend every dollar. And you'd think that that would be a simple thing, but actually, most of the systems are actually more like in the upper 80s and low 90s. So we're doing very, very well in that process. The second point I want to make on that is that the grant applications I talked about in June, where we got the awards for 2024, that begins on October 1st. The state of New Mexico, through their Black Hat internal process, will free up for Adam the templates, and then Adam will take the numbers from the contract the state's given us for those dollars, and we'll place those into our budget. So that's supposed to be what we've assumed in your approval of the budget already, and that's why I'm saying we may have to come back. We'll take a look if there's anything that shakes out from that. And then the third point, which is what you're going to be asked today for resolution, and I'm going to go into that presentation separately, is we're going to talk about the grant application that is to begin a year from now, October 1st, for 2025. But the application process is actually due on September the 8th. And so we built the budget around that, and those numbers you'll see today are the numbers we think going forward. And again, I'm going to present that separately. I'll take you through what's in that grant application before you are asked to approve it. Does this make any sense? It's okay?
Clear as mud, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. I've never seen anything like this. I love New Mexico. I'm just going with the flow now. And the board members know this from my time here. It's just a very different dynamic how we do a lot of our budgets and our process. I've never dealt with 3 budgets at one time. It's just amazing that we do it, but it all seems to work, so we'll go with that. And any other questions before I move on? That's the end of my presentation for the Executive Director's report.
Mr. Chair.
Madam Counselor?
Well, that's the hybrid electric bus that we acquired back in 2019. They went into service in 2021. So they're now, over 2.5 years old. I can't remember the miles on them. I think they've all gone over 100,000 miles already. That is similar to the buses that will be getting that are electric.
Counselor, if you can just.
Same company,
turn on your
Gillick.
microphone.
I asked a question about the bus. It's a hybrid, and we're going to be getting the all-electric soon.
Yes,
Thank you.
next year. Yep. Thank you.
All right.
I think the next item is the approval.
Is item number 8, which is discussion resolution approving the 5311 rural grant application.
I'm gonna make sure next time I label these by numbers, so I've made it a little harder for the staff to get this up, so I apologize for that, but thank you for that. So the letter that I've asked the chairman to sign off and the resolution you have has a series of numbers in it. The numbers add up to that the total you see on the screen of 2.1,096,750,000. And what's composed of that, and if I had time, I should put them in different order because I can see they kind of move around. But it includes capital items like bus shelters, buses, both a replacement and new vehicles going forward. And again, even though we programmed this for October 1st, 2024 to begin, we would have authorization of the money at that point to acquire whatever capital we have. If it's buses, we could be waiting another year to 2 years before we would get those. We're not tapped to the 1-year thing on capital because as long as it's encumbered. So that's why we use a lot of state contracts to do that. The shelters would be a little bit different. We'd have to do a separate procurement or find another agency we could piggyback on that. The state's not been very supportive of us getting shelters from them. We probably are gonna have to spend our own money on the 5307 urban funds to do that, in part because there's just so many things that we need that they've made that a lower priority to give us funds for that. They prefer to give us the money for operating, which of course we like that as our priority number one. In addition to that, and I wanted to make a point, if you go down to the second and third lines, you see program administration, rural and inner city. So under the 5311, there's 23 operators in the state, but there's only about 4 operators that are considered to be inner city or urban. They don't call it urban, but it's inner city, but it's an urbanized area. So our urbanized area is the city of Las Cruces as well as the city of El Paso. And so we get additional funds for inner city. So when we first started 7 years ago, we didn't get any of those funds. We only got the rural funds. And then you fall all the way down to number 4 and 5, you can see the rural assistance for the rural and inner city, and that's 50-50%. So 50% of that's the federal and 50% of it's local. So you can see the inner city money now has risen to being almost $500,000 a year. I don't even know how we would survive without it at this point in time. So that's what's really been perhaps the quiet piece behind the scenes, because it just grew so fast, especially during COVID, because of the CARES Act, and there was these different numbers and whatever. But in the end, we've ended up with these funds. And so that's really separated us from a lot of the other smaller rural areas, and it's put us in the same level as Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and actually Los Alamos, believe it or not. Some of the larger areas, well, Los Alamos being part of SCRTD, the North County, our counterpart to the north. So this gives you a little bit of an idea we have there. We'll break this down also once we have the 5307, and we'll take you through that as well, because now what we're trying to do is separate our funds from our operating environment so that we can spend more money that stays in the southern part of the county, and then we can free these monies up towards the north. Any questions, or I confused everybody on this?
So all that's encompassed in this one resolution?
That's in the resolution. In fact, if you go back to the resolution, you should see that number.
Okay, the only thing, well, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve resolution number 2024-08.
I have a motion on the floor. It has, is there a second?
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Yes, sir.
The agenda only highlights discussion and not approval. Is there a concern if we move forward with approval of a resolution that's technically not on the agenda?
It says discussion and resolution approving.
On the agenda?
The resolution is, it's,
Okay, sorry, I guess I was confusing the agenda item, so I apologize.
Yeah,
I will, so in that case, I will second the motion.
We'll wordsmith
Sorry for the
it.
confusion.
Wordsmith it.
I was one.
Throw me off, Daddy.
No, I was thinking, I apologize, I was skipping ahead thinking we were on agenda item number 9, so.
So the motion has been seconded. The only request I would make is that the last whereas statement to be included in the resolved part. By the South Central Regional Transit District, that the district requests 1.4 million in section 53, and then after that, passed, approved, and adopted by the governing body.
Okay,
Because that's the action, whereas the whereas statement set up the, the background information.
we can fix that. Do you guys want to do that by motion? And then,
Well,
Becky,
let the
talk
record,
to it.
is there any objection to that?
No, on the contrary, I agree. You're right. I mean,
Okay, let the record show. Yeah, there.
I agree with the chair, and that's how it should be worded, the therefore.
So let the record show that there's no objection to that change. With that, any other discussion on that? Seeing none, let me have a roll call vote on the matter, please.
Javier Perea,
Yes.
Nora Barraza,
Yes.
Meiji Powie, Meiji Powie,
Yes.
Yvonne Flores,
Yes.
Manuel Sanchez,
Yes.
Diana Murillo.
Yes.
Thank you, passes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 8 has been approved. Item number 9, discussion on 2024 legislative session and review of legislative funding.
While he's loading this, very brief history, at least my time, working with the New Mexico Transit Association, and more recently now I'm on the legislative committee. We have worked for a number of years to try to find ways of getting operating funding or capital funding that would be designated at the state level and create a pool. Texas has a small amount of money for transit that way. Florida, California, obviously some bigger states, but there is money available so that when you're trying to acquire things, you're able to get help from the state as the local match to the federal funds. And you're not putting so much of a stress on the local communities as we have been having to do, where we've leveraged a lot with the membership fees as well as the county contract that we have every year. And then we've also been very successful with the legislature, and I'll talk about that in my next presentation, in getting funds. Last year, we got $300,000 in funds from the legislature for a local match, but we only have 2 years to spend it. And then the year before, $200,000, 2 years to spend it. So we have to wrap that up by the coming June. We've spent most of that. So if it wasn't for the state legislature, and someday, I guess I'll bring that presentation out and show you how much money we've received. But I think we're getting very close to $1 million. If you go back to those first 5 buses that we got when we started, that was about 440. We picked up about 600,000 since then. Okay. Anyway, so moving on, what I wanted to present today is that we have an opportunity. Over the last 2 years, we've been able to get items to the legislature through various committees that we've tried, but we've never been able to get out of a committee or get it to the floor. If we got it out of the committee, we didn't make it to the floor. It's gotten lost. But this year, we're working with bill sponsor and vice chair of the committee, Day Hotchman Vigil. So I guess maybe you all are familiar with that individual. I'm looking more towards you, Ms. Barraza. I don't know if you have any contact with that individual or you're aware of them. I don't. Well, we're going to get that contact. So there was a public hearing. So far, what's happened is that there is a huge bill coming forward.
In New Mexico?
New Mexico.
That's a different name I have not heard.
So Mayor Barraza, she's a representative in the Albuquerque area.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, it's Representative Hochman Vigil. So she's.
Thank you.
And I know she's been particularly working on obviously funding for transportation, but in particular even recently on the spaceport and some of those other bills related to that as well.
She must be fairly new then.
I don't recall when she took her, but got into office, but yes.
Thank you so much. It really helps. So the public hearing this week was in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and it had more to do with the road construction bill. And what Ms. Vigil is trying to do is tie the transportation component of public transit to that same bill, and then enter the language we've been carrying for some time into that bill. And that's why I said in my comments, I will bring that information forward to you once I have a draft. And we think we'll have that within the next 30 days. So I will certainly get that out to the board. We'll want to have a discussion of strategy. We really need to get our local folks all together on this. This is a rare opportunity because what it would do is it would create, and everybody's throwing numbers around, so I can throw them around too, but who knows? So the possibility, especially right now, there's a huge surplus coming up again. And if you follow this, you probably know more than I do, but I just learned last week that those numbers that could happen for the budget legislature could be as much as double what it was last year, if that's even possible. And the numbers just keep going up. So the state is doing very well in the energy front. How that's going to play out, I don't know, but it is. So the possibility would be to get these funds into a trust fund. So this will end up being a trust fund. And from there, the funds could become available. And they've identified the state highway, actually the Public Transportation Administration for the state of New Mexico DOT, to be the controlling aspect of the funds. And then we would apply for projects as we do now. And that might be fine. I've shared a little of my concerns because I have come from other places, and you're throwing a third party in the middle of this. So, it's a lot better if you have a categorical grant and you knew what your money was going to be, and then you choose what to do with it. And probably not likely that's going to happen. So we'll do what we can, but the fact that there could be funds available could be a huge paradigm shift for this agency, because all of a sudden we would have other sources, especially for the local match. And that would allow us to balance out things we're doing. It'd allow us, as we were discussing at the last meeting, what are some of the things that we're not doing that we might be able to do as far as bus service, time, and so on. So we don't want to count our chickens before they're hatched. So let's take it one step at a time. But I did want you in the loop, because I think as we get more information, it's going to be important we talk to our legislators here locally and figure out how best to and make sure, at least for the southern part of the state, we're going to do our best to support this initiative. Any other questions? I'm sorry I can't give you too much detail today, but I just wanted to put it on your radar screen. And I would think, if I may say this, for the county and the cities, I would imagine this is going to affect all of your funds as well. It's not just us, the transit district. This is much bigger. Draft legislative bill, as I said, the bill's in draft. We will submit that, get that out to you as soon as we get it. We think it'll be about 30 days. And any other questions before I move on?
Counselor?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Armijo, the draft of the bill will be addressed to whom?
Well, the legislature, really. It's going to be a legislative bill that you would normally have.
Yes, but isn't there a way to have a contact with that particular committee?
Yes,
And
yes.
then
And I believe it's in the House, so I'll get you all those details as soon as I have that.
Yeah, and then once it goes to the House, it has to go to the Senate. So, right?
Right, or unless there's another sponsor
Yeah.
in the Senate.
Yeah, it has to be, so it's a double-edged sword there. And then it has to be approved by the governor. So it's a question of lobbying several people. So
Yes.
if we could get the names of the
Yes.
parties or these individuals in those committees.
Yeah,
then we
we'll
can-
do that. The New Mexico Transit Association also has a lobbyist that's working with us on this, and they're working very closely with Representative Vigil. And so that's what's getting us, we're moving along the way for that. So I'm actually surprised how much we've accomplished with very little money. It's a very small lobbying contract.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're being effective in terms of the people we speak with. So if we could get names, perhaps from Ms. Vigil in terms of her committee members, and then names in the Senate to speak to, because they may not be local people. And if they're not local people, sometimes our own local people, with all due respect to the elected officials, except for us here, they don't exactly do what we, what we ask them to do. And that's on the record. So, but we have to be effective, you know, we, just in terms of reaching out to them and then maybe go up to Santa Fe during, but at that point, actually, it's really too late to be going up to Santa Fe during the legislative session because all the wars have already been going on in the interim committees and all that sort of stuff.
I totally agree. I think the timeline is October to start working with this,
Yes.
while they're home, before they
Yes.
head over there.
And just to piggyback off of Counselor Flores is that it wouldn't hurt to even get your local legislators together and present what it is, your proposal, and get them to start lobbying now. They usually like to start meeting with groups the end of September into October, because December, January is way too late.
Yeah, and Mayor, one of the, you know, I'm on this committee, but I'm coming in late in the game. I've only been on the committee for about 6 months. I think one of the things that's missing, in fact, he's having trouble with my last presentation, so I apologize to the staff on the IT. It's a Word document. I never had a chance to convert it into a PowerPoint or whatever, so I'll address that here separately. But the connection between the two is, I've got a slide, I'll send that out to you separately, which really shows what we want and what we're asking the money for. We do this as kind of like a one-page fact sheet. The county does a really good job with they have a little booklet. I'm sure the city does the same. We're asking and we're working the lobbyists in the process, and we're looking at the bill. We're into the weeds. The problem is we're not, and we do have a communications person, so we had our first meeting last week. But in the end, you have to find some way to make the case. So we have to make the case for public transit. You know, it's nice for you to put some money into a trust fund, and it's nice that we have a way of how we're going to pull it out, working with the State Department of Transportation. But at the end of the day, why should we have those dollars? That's the biggest. And I don't even have an elevator speech for you. I mean, we haven't. We're way over here. We kind of assume that because we've been at this for. There we go. Hey, they actually found it. Thank you so much for that. You know, this is my little one piece that I'm looking at, because I'm looking at a couple of grants right now. One would be to ask legislature for up to $500,000 to help catch us up to some of those grants, because last year alone, we got just from the MPOs over $5 million, and it's a 90-10, so 10% of that would be $500,000. But again, it's 3 separate years, so we don't need it all at once. But if there's an opportunity to get the money to go into a fund for a couple of years for us, we'll go ahead and ask for it, you know, knowing that we may not get the full amount.
And usually what will happen, David, I mean, being a small town, I mean, we don't ask for one project that much, but with projects we have asked, sometimes they won't give us the full amount, but they'll give us a smaller amount. So even if they gave you half of that, it's a start, and then you can piggyback off next year.
That's a very good idea. I asked for 450 last year, and I got 300.
Right.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I asked for 300 a year before I got 200, so.
So ask for 1,000, and then you get what we really
Or
want.
a million, right? Good. So,
So it doesn't hurt to ask, you
I
know.
don't think it does. Actually, I think I don't know if there's a simple solution or answer, but part of it's meeting with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
It
what they
helps,
have
but it-
told us in the
But I'm shooting in the
past.
dark, and I'm not a lobbyist, so, you know.
No, we can't afford a lobbyist, and so we have to lobby for ourselves. And what we do is we prepare our ISIP with all the documentation, and then we'll gather our representatives, our legislators within our district, and meet with them either as a group or individually, and do the presentation to them. And we have staff available to answer any questions they have. And on the smaller scale, that's how we do it.
Thank you, that's very good advice. The number one feedback I've received from the legislature, when I went out and talked to different legislators last year and then along the time, is that we're moving towards zero-emission buses. I mean, the electric bus thing is what captivates the thing on it. The secondary one is back to what I was just saying about this trust fund. We've kind of proven ourselves. I mean, we haven't fallen on our face. We keep growing ridership. We keep doing more. And so I think we've earned a lot of respect from the legislature. So those are both good things, but we want to continue to capitalize on that. And so I think I'm more into listening right now. I want to find out what else can they tell us.
Mr. Chair, if I might just add, I think definitely you have the data to prove how successful it is. And I think it's the governor's goal to have all vehicles, by what year? Or is it the president's goal to have, all the electric cars?
There's so many different ones. California's 2030, I think they're
Is it 2030? Yeah.
2035. It's a
And
national.
I'm sure the governor has a deadline where she would like to see that. So definitely it's on the radar. So it's a good project to bring forth.
Thank you. So that's the end of my presentation. Do you have any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner?
I think to Counselor Flores' I think it was Counselor Flores or can't remember if it was Romeo Barraza, but talking about trying to lobby our local legislators, particularly on the House Transportation Committee. So we do have two local members on that committee. It would be Representative Willie Madrid and then Representative Micaela Lara Cadena.
Oh,
So
That's good.
who's he, perdón, who are the two members? Lara and
Madrid.
Mildred?
Madrid.
Madrid. Or Chaparral.
Yeah.
Oh, Willie.
Yeah.
Willie.
Okay.
And to answer, follow that up, Commissioner Sanchez, it does help that we have Representative Nathan Small that's on the Finance Committee.
Joanne is still.
Absolutely. So I think it'd be good if we can do this and particularly with going to electric buses. I think one of the things we've seen is that here, we've seen the school district recently get a grant application or a grant award from the federal government. And so it seems like even El Paso Electric is a very willing partner to help with making sure that meters are set up and even with the rates that they have, because of what we've seen in particular is that they're trying to create a nighttime load. And one of the pathways they see to this is electric vehicles. And so, I think I'd love to find out, I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that we've seen is that I think if we can get signed up for one of their, if we're eligible, the SCRTD is eligible for their experimental rates, if you set up a meter for the chargers, it's basically like 1 or 2 cents a kilowatt hour if you charge the buses at night. So it's basically almost free to charge. But like I said, I know El Paso Electric has been a willing participant in wanting to get more EVs in their service area.
And thank you for that. And yes, we are working closely with them. We do qualify for some rebates as well, and we're identifying those funds in our budget. So again, those are things that are not yet in the budget that Adam is bringing to you or has brought to you because we have not secured those funds. But once those are secured, those will be items that we'll adjust our budget to as well. But anyway, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. There's no other questions?
Does that cover also the items on 10?
Do you think the only issue was yes, this is the legislative, the photo you just saw, that's the legislative bill.
All right, so then from there we go on to item number 11, which is the closed session. I believe so, for discussion of property, right?
Mr. Chair?
The district may convene closed session.
Since it's only going to be for a few minutes, could I ask the staff to leave and then come back?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we convene in closed session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property as authorized by the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1, Section H8, as per NMSA 1978.
I have a motion on the floor to go to closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been
Second.
seconded by Mayor Barraza. Let me have a roll call vote on the matter, please.
Javier Perea,
Yes?
Nora Barraza,
Yes.
Neji Powie,
Yes.
Yvonne Flores,
Yes.
Manuel Sanchez,
Yes.
Diana Murillo,
Yes.
passes.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll be in closed session.
Ask Kat to go.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure.
It is the same way, actually helped us, so we dealt with the operator, it was an operator issue.
And I didn't think it was broken just because you were still working on it. You were.
But Loretta's in the middle of that one, so she's here, so that's good.
Like right after our afternoon plenaries, I would just go straight to the room and then.
All right, are we clear with IT? No, we still have the posting up. All right, looks like we're back. Welcome back. We are now in open session. Let the record show that only those items on the agenda were discussed, that no decision was made in closed session. Moving on to the rest of the agenda here, we have a board comment. Are there any board comments? Trustee Powie, I recall you had some?
That's right. Okay.
Trustee Powie?
Meiji.
Maybe
Oops.
There you go.
Okay,
There we go.
yeah, all right. Javier, were you also contacted by Ray Magnuson?
No.
Okay.
Or if there's an email, I'm about 300 emails behind, so.
No, he called the Village of Williamsburg and asked for my phone number.
Oh,
And David, I believe you were contacted, correct?
That's correct. I'm happy to update the board. We had a positive conversation. I also have Loretta Gallegos, who's with me. She has I don't think her history is quite as long as yours, Mayor Barraza, but close.
I was gonna say.
So what I can say is that we did consider this an operator issue. We investigated, we pulled some cameras.
Is this a personnel issue or?
Well,
we probably should-
no, it's a safety issue.
Oh, safety.
Yeah, this is Meiji. What concerned me is that they're not stopping at the railroad crossings because we know we don't have gates at most of them. We know there's no warning lights.
Right.
And that is a concern.
Okay, no,
So-
that's fair. That's
So if
fair.
I can, since we have Loretta here, she did the investigation. Loretta, would you want to add a little context to this?
Yeah, we did do some investigating and we did see that he wasn't stopping. We are in the process right now of
Educating him?
writing him up, yes, and putting him through some more training.
Right.
You know, and I think that probably needs to be a point made to all of your drivers. I mean, it's really easy to fly across those things, but
Well,
For heaven forbid.
We
Can
certainly-
Can
we
I
certainly-
just ask something? So I did get the phone call, and he left a message for me at the office. I called David before, and I asked David to handle the situation. So what was the situation? I never spoke to the individual.
Well, oh.
So
Okay,
what was
yeah.
the situation?
Big things start with little things. So the little thing was a bus stop where he had missed him, and there were some issues where the driver, we have different drivers, but one particular driver seemed like he was not picking him up. So that started it. And so we decided, well, let's look into this a little bit further. Let's see what the cameras tell us. And so at that point, the cameras told us there was a problem with the railroad tracks. So to Meiji, Trustee Powie, we were not aware of that issue until
oh, he talked to me about it.
he didn't tell us
That's-
about that. So it may have come up along the way, but it was basically I guess he did say something. So we did investigate that. But yes, the advantage of having the cameras, we have what we need, and so yes, the issue will be dealt with. I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
Well, I hope it's not, I mean, I hope that all of your drivers are aware that they have to stop railroad crossings.
They do. We do have a safety committee that meets monthly. I issued a directive through staff this past week to have all of us now wearing safety vests whenever we're on the property. So whenever the board members come, we'll loan you a vest for the day. So as you drive through there, you know, it's just one of those things. We're getting bigger. We have more equipment. We have more activities. We have to, even in administration, we have to do our part. And I think that plays to what you're saying, Trustee Powie, that if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, that reinforces to the drivers what they need to be doing all the time.
Yeah, and I don't know why he picked on Williamsburg. I mean, I get complaints from people just because I'm on the Williamsburg board and also because of my nonprofit work, so I listen. And he had a point, so thank you for addressing it.
You bet.
All right. Any other board comments? All right, ladies and gentlemen, seeing no more comments, so we're on item number 13. If there's no objection, the next meeting is on September 27th, 2023. And if there's no objection, I have 2:44 PM. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.